On 6th August 1945, American bomber Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The bomb, called as Little Boy, was equivalent to the power of 15,000 tons of TNT and left a terrifying mushroom cloud.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT.
A city died and 80,000 of its inhabitants were wiped out. The lingering effects of the atomic bomb would affect people for years to come. This was the first time that atomic weapons had been used in war. This changed the world, and just 3 days later, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. Nazi Germany was researching on nuclear weapons. The US had been working on developing an atomic weapon since 1940. Then in July 1945, the US conducted its first test in a desert in New Mexico. By then, the war was over. Germany had already been defeated, but the war against Japan in the Pacific continued. President Truman was advised to not invade Japan, so Truman ordered the use of this new weapon to bring an end to the war. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's unconditional surrender over radio.
Of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
In popular culture, the movie Godzilla depicted Hiroshima bombing. In the original film, Godzilla was aggravated by a hydrogen bomb. In other versions, instead of a bomb, the fictional creature of a giant dinosaur destroys Tokyo. Japanese movie audiences left the theaters in tears. But Americans had the opposite reaction, finding comedic value in the movie. Other art inspired by the bombings was used for atomic-themed products.
Good morning, Wanwan and Doc. My name's Eliza po. Sana ay gising na ang diwa nyo ngayon, lalo na at ang hirap imulat ng mga mata ng ganitong oras. So, ayan guys, base sa napanood nating video, alam naman siguro nating lahat na nagkaroon ng isang napakalaking giyera na kumitil ng milyong-milyong buhay at ito ay ang tinawag na ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig o World War II. Ito rin ay na-discuss na ng Group 7 if you guys can still remember. So, World War II happened on September 1, 1939 dahil in-invade ng Germany on Poland, inciting Poland's allies, Britain and France to declare war on Germany. The principal belligerents were the Axis. Ito yung Germany, Japan, and Italy at ang mga allies naman na sila Great Britain, the US, and the Soviet Union. 2 days later naman, France and the United Kingdom declared war on Germany. Makikita noon sa giyera na ito na walang gustong magpatalo dahil ang Germany nag-take control of much of Western Europe, including France. Unti-unti lang nagsimulang matapos ito nung sumurrender ang Germany sa mga allies, marking VE Day or Victory in Europe Day. Pansin nyo na sinabi ko na unti-unti pa lang natatapos sapagkat hindi pa natatapos ang lahat sa pag-surrender ng Germany sa mga allies dahil noong August 6, 1945 ay nagbagsak ng atomic bomb ang US sa Hiroshima, Japan at sa August 9 naman sa parehong taon ay nagbagsak ulit ng atomic bomb ang US sa Nagasaki, Japan naman. And because of this, Japan formally surrendered to the Allies, marking VJ Day or Victory over Japan Day noong September 2, 1945, marking the end of World War II and the Axis were opposed by the Allies. So Eliza, bakit mo ba yung sinasabi sa amin? Ang daming nangyari sa war na yan. Connected ba yan sa pag-aaralan natin? And the answer is yes. Because the topic that our group will be discussing to you guys is all about the International Bill of Rights. Eliza, anong connect nga ng World War II sa topic nyo? So, okay guys. So, ano nga ba talaga ang connect ng nangyaring giyera noon sa International Bill of Rights? You guys may not know, pero alam nyo ba na nabuo ang International Bill of Rights dahil sa nangyaring World War II? Yes, tama kayo ng narinig. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly on December 10, 1948, was the result of the experience of the Second World War. The estimated death count ranges between 70 and 85 million people, including military personnel, mainly caused by deliberate genocide, massacres, mass bombings, disease, and starvation. The horrors of World War II established a global bill of human rights that would obligate every state to recognize the equal right of every individual on his territory to life, liberty and property, religious freedom, and the use of his own language. So, ito ang isa sa napakaraming rason bakit mayroon tayong tinatawag na International Bill of Rights. Another war that is timely relevant today is the war between Israel and Palestine. Guys, trigger warning po, killings. So, it is now clear that Israel is engaging in a genocide of the Palestinian people. Ano nga ba ang genocide? Genocide ay isang karumal-dumal na akto na ang intensyon ay sirain, either in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious na grupo. These acts encompass killing members of the group, causing them serious harm. Notably, the people targeted can be a geographically limited part of the group. As reported by Al Jazeera, the Israeli state has loosened its military rules of engagement, essentially giving its soldiers the green light or permission na patayin lahat ng may encounter nila inside the Gaza Strip as part of their ground operations. Bombs from the air are indiscriminately killing and maiming Palestinians. Malinaw na gusto ng mga Israeli na i-colonize ang northern Gaza and turn it into a security or military zone, permanently expelling the Palestinians who currently live there. So, ayan siya. Bago muna tayo tumungo sa ating main topic, let me first call on Janica again for some icebreaker. Janica?
At first, there were no human rights. If you were in with the right crowd, you were safe. If you weren't, well, you weren't. But then a guy named Cyrus the Great decided to change all that. After conquering Babylon, he did something completely revolutionary. He announced that all slaves were free to go. He also said people had the freedom to choose their religion, no matter what crowd they were a part of. They documented his words on a clay tablet known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And just like that, human rights were born. The idea spread quickly to Greece, to India, and eventually to Rome. They noticed that people naturally followed certain laws, even if they weren't told to. They called this natural law, but it kept getting trampled on by those in power. Not until 1,000 years later in England did they finally get a king to agree that no one can overrule the rights of the people, not even a king. People's rights were finally recognized, and they were now safe from those in power. Kind of. It still took a bunch of British rebels declaring their independence before the king got the point that all men are created equal. Which isn't to say he liked the idea, but he couldn't stop them, and America was born. The French immediately followed with their own revolution for their own rights. Their list was even longer, and they insisted that these rights weren't just made up. They were natural. The Roman concept of natural law had become natural rights. Unfortunately, not everyone was so thrilled. In France, a general named Napoleon decided to overthrow the new French democracy and crown himself emperor of the world. He almost succeeded, but the countries of Europe joined forces and defeated him. Human rights was again a hot topic. They drew up international agreements, broadly granting many rights across Europe. But only across Europe. The rest of the world somehow still didn't qualify. Instead, they got invaded, conquered, and consumed by Europe's massive empires. But then a young lawyer from India decided enough was enough. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, and in the face of violence, he insisted that all people of Earth had rights, not just in Europe. Eventually, even Europeans started to agree. But it wasn't going to be that easy. 2 world wars erupted. Hitler exterminated half the Jewish population of Earth in horrifying Nazi death camps. And all told, 90 million people died. Never had human rights been so terrifyingly close to extinction. And never had the world been more desperate for change. So the countries of Earth banded together and formed the United Nations. Their basic purpose was to to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person. But what were human rights? Were they the proclamations of Cyrus, the natural laws of Rome, the declarations of France? Everyone seemed to have a slightly different idea of what human rights should be. But under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting, until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after.
Good morning everyone, I am Maria Zena M. Rolian and I will be discussing the International Bill of Rights. Ano ba ang International Bill of Rights? It is actually known as the International Bill of Human Rights. Iniimpluwensya nito ang mga desisyon at aksyon ng government, state and non-state actors to make economic, social and cultural rights a top priority in the formation and implementation of national, regional and international policy and law. Mayroong 5 core human rights treaties ang United Nations that function to advance the fundamental freedoms and to protect the basic human rights of all people. So, ano nga ba ang 5 core na iyon? The first one is Human Declaration of Human Rights. The second is International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Third is International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The fourth one is First Optional Protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And the last one is Second Optional Protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. At syempre, hindi naman may sasabatas ang law na ito kung hindi importante, hindi ba? Ano nga ba ang importance ng International Bill of Rights? After the Declaration and the Covenants were proclaimed, it had a huge influence on the thoughts and actions of individuals and their governments in all parts of the world. Malaki talaga ang naging epekto nito sa bawat tao dahil nakasalalay ang karapatan nila rito. And para naman malaman natin ang purpose ng International Bill of Rights, my co-reporter Faith will be discussing it. Please take it away.
Hi, good day everyone. So now we will tackle the purpose of the International Bill of Rights. So ano-ano nga ba yung mga layunin? Bakit tayo nagkaroon at bakit naitatag ang International Bill of Rights? So the International Bill of Rights, in combination with other international human rights instruments and mechanisms, plays a vital role in advancing the cause of human rights and promoting a more just and equitable world. So, number 1 purpose of Bill of Rights is for the protection of human rights. So, ang unang layunin nitong Bill of Rights ay itatag at magbigay guarantee sa mga pangunahing karapatan at kalayaang itinuturing ng pangunahing bahagi ng dangal or dignity nating mga tao. At gayon din ay sa pagsasaayos nitong ating lipunan. These rights encompass various facets of human existence such as yung freedom of speech natin, sa religion natin, karapatan sa politics, karapatan sa mga ari-arian at iba pang karapatan na itinuturing na fundamental sa dignidad nating mga tao. The Bill of Rights acts as a crucial check on government power na kung saan ay nagbibigay katiyakan ito na ang mga mamamayan ay nagtataglay ng tiyak na likas na karapatan na hindi maaaring mapasok ng walang pagsang-ayon. Sa pagsasaad ng mga proteksyon na ito ay nagpapalakas sa ideya na ang ating government ay umiiral upang maglingkod sa mga tao at dapat igalang ang likas na karapatan at autonomiya ng bawat mamamayan. Next is accountability. So the Bill of Rights serves a crucial purpose in ensuring accountability within a government by establishing a framework that outlines the limit of authority and safeguards individual liberties. For instance, the Fifth Amendment, which is yung providing several protection to those people na naakusahan na nakakomit ng krimen. They guarantees due process rights, ensures that individuals accused of crimes are treated fairly and have the right to a fair trial. This exemplifies how the Bill of Rights imposes accountability on the government's legal procedures. If these rights are violated, legal mechanisms are in place for citizens to challenge and rectify such actions, holding the government accountable for overstepping its bounds. So another purpose is for the promotion of universal values. So like what I've said, regardless of cultural or national differences, the promotion of these universal values through the Bill of Rights establishes a common ground for human rights and reinforces the idea that certain rights are inalienable and applicable to all individuals, fostering a sense of shared humanity. By identifying the fundamental rights that should be defended, the Bill of Rights creates a universal language of respect for every individual, which is a language that understood and respected by diverse cultures. It provides a basis for an international consensus on human rights that transcends differences. Focusing on the rights advocated by the Bill of Rights open doors for nuanced relationships and progress in fields of diplomacy and international relations. Nagiging instrument ito sa pag-express or pagkakaroon ng collective goal para ma-maintain ang peace, justice, and freedom ng mga mamamayan. And sa ganitong paraan, ang Bill of Rights ay nagiging daan para sa global development and pagkakaisa, iba-iba man ang nasyonalidad. It demonstrates that despite differences, there is a common goal that can serve as guide toward a more just, peaceful, and humane world. Next is legal framework. So, by explicitly enumerating these rights such as freedom of speech, religion, and the right to a fair trial, gaya ng mga nasabi ko kanina, the Bill of Rights establishes a framework that protects citizens from potential abuses of government authority. It acts as a shield against arbitrary actions, ensuring that individuals retain autonomy over their thoughts, expressions, and actions. Dagdag pa rito, the Bill of Rights plays a role in maintaining a balance between individual rights and societal interest, acknowledging that certain freedoms may be subject to limitations when necessary for the greater good. In essence, the Bill of Rights fosters an environment where individuals are free to express themselves, practice their beliefs, and receive fair treatment, all of which are integral to preserving and promoting human dignity within the legal framework. Last is human dignity. So the Bill of Rights, through its provisions, contributes to the protection and enhancement of human dignity in various ways. Isang pangunahing aspeto ng dignidad ng tao na tinutukoy ng Bill of Rights ay ang karapatang magpahayag. Ang karapatang ito ay nagbibigay pahintulot sa mga tao na ipahayag ang kanilang mga iniisip, kanilang mga opinyon at paniniwala ng walang takot sa sensura o kahit na anong pag-uusig. Protecting this freedom, the Bill of Rights recognizes the inherent dignity in allowing individuals to voice their perspectives and contribute to public discourse. Isang halimbawa pa ay ang protection to religious freedom. Kinikilala ng Bill of Rights na ang pananampalataya ng isang tao ay lubos na personal at integral sa kanilang pagkakakilanlan. By safeguarding the right to practice one's religion, the legal framework respects the autonomy and dignity of individuals in matters of faith, reinforcing the principle that diverse beliefs contribute to the richness of society. Itinatag ng Bill of Rights na walang tao ang dapat sumasailalim sa nakakahiya o hindi makataong trato na kinikilala ang likas na halaga ng bawat tao, anuman ang kanilang kalagayan. So, in general, the Bill of Rights aims to uphold the freedom, justice, and dignity of citizens against any form of abuse and violation of their rights. It provides the foundation for a society with justice and respect for each other.
Thank you, Faith. Ngayon naman ay pag-uusapan natin ang timeline ng International Bill of Rights. In the year 1945, San Francisco Conference held to draft the Charter of the United Nations, a proposal to embody a declaration on the essential rights of the man. The Charter clearly speaks of promoting and encouraging respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, na nakasaad sa Article 1, Paragraph 3 ng batas. The idea of promulgating an International Bill of Rights was also considered by many as basically implicit in the Charter. In 1946, the General Assembly considered a draft declaration of fundamental human rights and freedoms and transmitted it to the Economic and Social Council. for reference to the Commission of Human Rights for consideration in its preparation of an International Bill of Rights, base sa Resolution 43. Early in 1947, the Commission authorized its officer to formulate what it termed a preliminary draft International Bill of Human Rights. Later on, the work was taken over by a formal drafting committee consisting of members of the Commission from 8 states selected with due regard for geographical distribution. Dumako naman tayo sa unang core ng Human Rights Treaties, which is ang Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Nabuo ang unang treaty na ito pagkatapos ng World War II dahil sa mga nilabag na karapatang pantao noong war na iyon. Marami ang nawalan ng buhay dahil sa deliberate genocide, massacres, mass bombing, disease and starvation. World leaders decided to complement the UN Charter with a roadmap to guarantee the rights of every individual everywhere. The document they considered and which would later become the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was taken up at the first session of the General Assembly in 1946. Alam niyo ba na ito ang milestone document sa history ng human rights? 2 documents were presented by the drafting committee during the General Assembly. Ano nga ba ang dalawa na iyon? The first one is in the form of declaration, which would set forth general principles or standards of human rights. And the second one is in the form of convention, which would define specific rights and their limitations. It is widely recognized as having inspired and paved the way for the adoption of more than 70 human rights treaties applied today on a permanent basis at global and regional levels. This core of human rights consists of preamble and 30 articles. Quick trivia muna bago natin alamin ang importance at influence ng Universal Declaration. Alam niyo ba na ayon sa Human Rights Violation Victims Memorial Commission, mayroong rough estimation na around 70,000 people were imprisoned, around 34,000 were tortured, and around 3,300 people were killed during the Marcos regime? These numbers just prove that tens of thousands of Filipinos experienced injustice, hardships, and obstacles under Ferdinand Marcos Sr. Kaya let's never forget those lives that were taken dahil kailangan nating tandaan that time and forgetfulness are the allies of abusers. Ngayon naman italakayin natin ang importance at influence ng Universal Declaration. It has set the direction for all subsequent work in the field of human rights and has provided the basic philosophy for many legally binding international instruments designed to protect the rights and freedoms which it proclaims. Conceived as a common standard of achievement for all people in all nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has become a yardstick by which to measure the degree of respect and compliance with international human rights standards. Kung timeline naman ng Universal Declaration ang pag-uusapan, in December 1947, the Commission decided to apply the term International Bill of Human Rights to the series of documents in preparation and established 3 working groups. Isa sa declaration, isa sa convention, which it renamed Covenant, at isa naman sa implementation. In May-June 1948, the Commission revised the draft declaration dahil sa mga komentong na-receive ng government. The declaration was therefore submitted through the Economic and Social Council to the General Assembly na ginanap sa Paris. On December 10, 1948, the General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights bilang kauna-unahang proyekto ng nasabing instruments. These are the rights that are protected by the Universal Declaration.
Thank you, Nika. Ngayon naman guys, lumako tayo sa International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. All human rights, whether civil and political or economic, social and cultural, are interlinked. For example, individuals who cannot read or write often have a harder time realizing their full potential than those who can to find work or to take part in political activity. Ang malnutrition and hunger din are less likely to occur where individuals can effectively exercise their right to vote and influence government priorities. Ang ICE, SCR ay nagpo-provide ng legal framework para mapaalagaan at maingatan ang most basic economic, social, and cultural rights, including rights relating to education, to work in just and favorable conditions, to an adequate standard of living, to the highest attainable standards of physical and mental health. Ayan, meron yan. Meron ding rights to social protection and enjoyment of the benefits of cultural freedom and scientific progress. This treaty consists of preamble, has 5 parts and 31 articles. Next naman, we have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. As one of 2 international treaties that make the International Bill of Human Rights, along with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, dito naman sa ICCPR ay pinoprotect niya at pinapreserve ang most basic civil and political rights, including the freedom from slavery, right to equality, and the right to life. For this reason, karamihan sa mga karapatan na nilalaman sa ICCPR are related to tackling VOW. VOW means violence against women. It is related given that vow is a cause and consequence of women's unequal enjoyment of their human rights when compared to men. This third core of human rights treaties comprises of preamble, 6 parts and 52 articles. The timeline of International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. In 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR, was a milestone document in the history of human rights. Drafted by representatives with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world, the declaration was proclaimed by United Nations General Assembly in Paris on December 10, 1948. So, dyan nagsimula ang lahat as a common standard of achievements for all people and all nations. And thereafter, ang December 10 ay sinusunod na bawat taon as Human Rights Day. Ayan, siguro karamihan sa atin ay hindi alam na Human Rights Day po ang December 10. The Commission examined the text of the draft covenant in 1949 and the following year it revised the first 18 articles on the basis of comments na natanggap from governments. In 1950 naman, the General Assembly declared that the enjoyment of civic and political freedoms and economic, social and cultural rights are interconnected and interdependent. Napagdesisyonan ng Assembly na i-include ang explicit recognition of the equality of men and women in related rights as set forth in the Charter. The Commission drafted 14 articles on economic, social, and cultural rights in 1951 on the basis of proposals made by governments and suggestions by specialized agencies. It also formulated 10 articles on measures for the implementation of those rights under which states parties to the covenant ay kailangan magsumite ng mga regular na ulat. After a long debate in 1952, the General Assembly requested the Commission to draft 2 covenants on human rights. Ang isa ay naglalaman ng civil and political rights at ang isa naman ay naglalaman ng economic, social, and cultural rights. So, itong dalawang covenants na ito ay ang diniscuss na natin kanina, if naalala nyo pa. Tiniyak din ng Assembly na dapat ang dalawang covenants na ito ay naglalaman ng similar provisions as many as possible. It also decided to include an article providing that all people shall have the right of self-determination. Yung mga drafts naman na ito ay prinisenta sa UN General Assembly in 1954. The General Assembly reviewed those texts and decided to give the drafts the widest possible publicity in order that government might study them thoroughly and that public opinion might express itself freely. It recommended that its third committee start an article-by-article discussion of the text in 1955. So guys, bali rito sa taon na to ay napagdesisyonan na ang lahat dahil nagkaroon na sila ng malalimang talakayan ng mga nakasulat na teksto para ito ay tuluyan ng makumpleto. Tapos ito na, finally, on the 16th of December 1966, the preparation of the 2 covenants was completed and adopted. So, these covenants, the ICE-SCR and the ICCPR, are reinforcements concerning the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Guys, sana gising pa kayo? So, to summarize, the Human Rights Commission produced 2 major documents, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Both became international law in 1976. Okay? So, together with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, these 2 covenants comprise what is known as the International Bill of Human Rights. So, ang dami kong sinasabi. Sige, ganito na lang. Para hindi kayo maguluhan sa dalawa, ito na lang ang lahanin nyo. The ICCPR focuses on issues such as the right to life, freedom of speech, religion, and voting. Yun yung ICCPR. The ICESCR naman focuses on food, education, health, and shelter. Both covenants proclaim these rights for all people and forbid discrimination. So, guys, kindly please check the chat box and alalahanin nyo itong significant dates na ito. Dahil who knows, baka magtanong kami. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly at its third session in Paris on December 10, 1948. Tapos, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, together with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, were adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 16, 1966. So, itong mga symbols na nakikita nyo sa screen are the rights that are protected by ICESCR. So, ayan siya. Now, this slide naman contains the rights that are protected by ICCPR. Now, for the third set of Ipaglaban Mo icebreaker, let me call on Nika again.
First optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So, it is a significant international instrument that empowers individuals to seek justice for human rights violation. It enables the Human Rights Committee set up under that covenant to receive and consider communications from individuals claiming to be victims of violations of any of the rights set forth in the covenant. Its timeline traces the historical development of this protocol, highlighting key moments and the impact it has on the protection of civil and political rights globally. So, this treaty contains 14 articles. So, the first optional protocol was subsequently adopted on December 16, 1966 and entered into force on March 23, 1976. This optional protocol allowed individuals to submit complaints or communications directly to the Human Rights Committee, the body responsible for overseeing the implementation of the ICCPR. Over the years, the first optional protocol has played a crucial role in advancing human rights globally. It has enabled individuals to bring cases before the Human Rights Committee, holding states accountable for violations of the rights enshrined in the ICCPR. The protocol has become an essential mechanism for ensuring that the principles outlined in the covenant are not merely aspirational but enforceable. The first optional protocol continues to be a vital tool in the fight for human rights. Its timeline reflects the global commitment to creating a world where individuals can seek justice and accountability for violations of their civil and political rights. As we move forward, it remains essential to strengthen and promote mechanisms like the first optional protocol to ensure that human rights are not only upheld in principle, but also in practice, fostering a more just and equitable world for all. The second optional protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Aiming at the abolition of the death penalty contributes to enhancement of human dignity and progressive development of human rights. This core of human rights treaties comprise of 11 articles. So, states parties commit to taking all necessary measures to progressively reduce the number of offenses for which the death penalty may be imposed and to limit its application. The United Nations General Assembly adopted the second optional protocol to the ICCPR on December 15, 1989, and this entered into force on July 11, 1991. December 1989, this covenant was adopted and proclaimed by the General Assembly Resolution 44-128 on 15th of December 1989. 1991, when this entered into force on 11th of July 1991. And at this point, states that had ratified the protocol were bound by its provisions to work towards the abolition of the death penalty within their jurisdictions. The timeline beyond the entry into force involves ongoing ratifications and accessions by individual countries. States are encouraged to become parties to the protocol, signaling their commitments to the global effort to eradicate capital punishment. The second optional protocol's timeline reflects the evolving commitment of the international community to the abolition of the death penalty. While progress has been made, challenges and variations in global practices persist, making ongoing efforts crucial in advancing human rights and promoting a world where capital punishment is no longer a part of legal systems. So, that's all for the first and second optional protocol, and I hope you learned something from us. Again, I am Faith, and here is Janica again to ask you something about our report.